and welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie and this is all about my life after gastric bypass surgery. And today's video is my, please hold, I'll look it up. 22. It looks like it's my 22-month update. I cannot believe that. Where did the time go? Okay, so quick disclaimer, you guys. You will have to pry Diet Mountain Dew from my cold, dead hands. I tried looking it up. I tried figuring out if there's science behind it. I swear that Diet Mountain Dew is less carbonated than any other soda. This does not bother me. Whereas sometimes other sodas can bother me, or at least make me feel very bloated and gassy, which is the #1 reason why they tell you not to drink soda after surgery. It has nothing to do with stretching your pouch. It has nothing to do with being like super awful and it's gonna ruin your surgery progress. I can't not have the new Mountain Dew flavors, partially because they are so kind as to always release a 0 sugar option when they come out with new flavors. They don't always have them in production for the whole time, but they always have a 0 sugar option. And because it's the only soda that I ever really want or crave nowadays, I get it. Now, what does that mean? It means that I've had a 12-pack in my fridge for like over a month and it takes me forever to get through them. I barely ever drink these. When I want a soda, it is so less frequently than I used to. So this really is just like a sometimes treat. If you don't know, they do like a spooky time Halloween mystery flavor every year. My guess is Sour Patch Kids for this year. It's what it tastes like to me. It tastes like delicious 0 sugar Sour Patch Kids. How could you not want that in your life? Okay, enough about Mountain Dew. I am not here to talk about Mountain Dew. I'm here to talk about why the heck we're in October already and what happened to September. Because I swear I just sat down and did my 21-month update for August. So what happened to September? I truly do not know where this time is going, and it's starting to get really nerve-wracking for me because at this rate, Christmas is going to happen in like 4 days, and I'm not ready for that. Also, as soon as next year hits, I feel like I've got a ton of stuff going on and just it's gonna be like running around with my head cut off. I don't know how I'm gonna get through next year with everything that I see on the horizon, so I'm not ready for this year to be over yet. Not quite. Like, it can progress at a normal speed, but this really fast thing, I'm not all about this. I need a moment to like relax. Something that I know is exacerbating that feeling is that I am super busy and super stressed. I know I've been talking about it in recent videos. I know I mentioned in one of my recent videos that this seems to be a recurring pattern for me. So I'm kind of looking into that because I think my reaction to stress might be a little bit more than necessary. I definitely seem to operate at like up here. So I'm working on that. Definitely talking to my therapist about that. But the fact remains that I am super stressed and super busy. That has just majorly contributed to this last month going really fast. Before I get too into this, because I was jumping forward really fast, I always want to make sure that I stop and I thank my subscribers. Thank you so much if you're a returning subscriber. You keep me going, you keep this channel going. I can't tell you how much I appreciate each and every one of you that shows your support by subscribing to my channel. So thank you so much. If you're not yet a subscriber, I just ask that if you like these monthly updates, if you like the other types of content that I put out, the live streams that I did, I think I did one last week, those types of things, just show your support, show that you like that content and that you want me to keep going by hitting the subscribe button and ringing the notification bell so you get notified whenever my videos go live. And the other thing that YouTube keeps telling me that I'm supposed to mention, because I forget to mention it because I don't know what I'm doing, is that I do have a membership offered on the channel now. It is $1.99 a month and it's just a flat fee if you want to be a member or not. I'm not doing tears. I'm not getting crazy. I can't have that kind of stress in my life. But I am offering some additional content for members, some outfit of the day pictures as I try to learn how to dress myself. I did recently post a video that I took a couple of weeks ago while I was imbibing in an adult beverage. So different types of content that I feel might not be super appropriate or something that I want to put on my main channel for everybody, I will be putting into that membership area. I'm also in the background right now working on a bigger, lengthier video, and I'll be dropping kind of a spoiler and hints and discussions about that with my members before that goes live, probably not until sometime in November. So if you want to do that kind of thing, if you want that extra interaction, that extra content. But more importantly, if you're the kind of person that wants to support the channel in a monetary way, in a different kind of way other than just subscribing, that is available for you. So go ahead and click on the join button underneath this video if you want to see a breakdown of different things that are available. Or I think there's a link in the description as well if you want to check that out. Okay, enough about that. What is going on? So I want to talk about what has been stressing me out, because there are quite a few different things going on. First and foremost, one of the things that is wrapping up now, but it was kind of stressful in the beginning. I don't think that I mentioned it, even though it's been almost a month now that this has happened, but my cat, Philip, has been diagnosed with diabetes. I kept telling him every time I was working on my weight that he needed to work on his weight. He was on a diet, he was on special food. I kept saying, you're gonna get diabetes if you're not careful. And here we are, he got diabetes. My poor chunky boy. It has not been that big of a crazy change. It hasn't been a huge issue, partly because I am already so structured in my life. My pets are already on a feeding schedule. Everybody has a pretty good routine. So we just had to change up the routine slightly, but he is such a good kitty. And he's such a good boy, and he's been doing so great. We had to change his food to help manage his diabetes, and he loves it. He just scarfs it down like it's the best thing in the whole world. So that has made things really easy. And then about 15 minutes after he eats, I have to give him his little insulin injection. And in addition to that, every couple of weeks right now, we are taking his blood glucose levels with a little monitor, just like you get for a people. And that means that we have to poke him and get blood every couple of hours to see what his levels are doing throughout the day. And he has been taking that like a champ. He's amazing. I mean, I have an alarm on my phone that goes off 15 minutes after we feed him. And I literally just call him over, and he comes running over and sits in my lap, and I give him his injection. I mean, he's such a good kitty. So it really hasn't been too hard to get this implemented, but it did require me changing my whole morning routine, which I was just feeling comfortable with. And in addition to that, it's just added a little extra level of complication to life. So I need to make sure that I don't have early morning appointments, which hasn't been an issue. I don't schedule things that early, but also I have to make sure that I'm home by 7 p.m. because that's when he needs to be fed and get his injection and everything. So making sure that my life is aligning with his schedule now, and knowing that we have to keep this in mind for the future. If we ever go anywhere, if we ever have pet sitters, this is just an extra level of complication that we'll have to make sure that whoever is sitting for us is comfortable with this, knows exactly what to do, that we feel comfortable with them. So that's just an extra level of like things that were on my radar because of how much traveling I have to do next year, and how much is going on in my life next year. It's just something that I'm really aware of. That leads me into the second thing that this last month was super stressful about. So for about 2 solid weeks, I had immense stress around my pet sitter because I had a really bad pet sitter.
3 hours later.
I started to go into a whole explanation of this and realized that this would take a 30-minute video just to talk about all the things that happened. Ultimately, what ended up happening is our house sitter didn't actually house sit while we were gone for a week, and we didn't find out until we got back. So she cared for our pets. She did make sure everyone was fed. She did go out of her way to really engage with the dog and everything, and that's great, but she never stayed over at the house. So we found out afterwards that she never stayed. She would just leave at night and come back. So I was a little uncomfortable realizing that my pets didn't have anyone around. They really like cuddling and stuff at night. Nobody was there for them. It was also something that we had talked about. It should have been expected, so I'm not sure why she didn't. There was just a whole bunch of stuff going on. She was in constant contact with me, like constant contact with me over the top while I was gone. So the entire trip, I was a little bit worried because she was just over excessive and had a lot of questions and things. So I never really felt super comfortable the entire time we were gone out of state, where I couldn't even like do anything if something happened. Also, the dog got out the first day she was there, and we got a call from a stranger who had him, who called the number on his tag. I mean, it was a disaster. I'm not going to get into everything. Maybe I'll do a really long post about it on the membership side, so that if anyone's actually interested, I could go into the depth of the hell that this experience was. Ultimately, the whole week we were gone was pretty stressful, and then the whole week afterwards, leading up to me trying to figure out how to confront her about the things I was worried about, and ultimately the confrontation, and then finding out that she didn't do everything she was supposed to do. It was super stressful. I don't like that kind of confrontation. I don't like, especially when someone is really nice and like trying to be a decent person, but just really dropped the ball and just did a terrible job. I don't like making them feel bad or confronting them about a situation. I'm not that kind of person. So the whole thing made me really uncomfortable, and I stressed out for several days afterwards, just trying to figure out how I was going to bring this up to her and figure out what was going on. So that was a disaster. At this point, everyone's fine. Everyone survived. We're good. We're good. So I'm moving on. The trip in Alaska was not a relaxing trip. This was the second time that I've been to Alaska this year, because this one was way more planned than the last one. The last one, I just sort of at the last minute went and visited my mom. This one was a planned trip to the property that we own in Alaska since my dad passed away. It's now in me and my sister's names. I have a video from last year when we went to go check on the property for the first time in a few years that I'll link to up here. And ultimately this trip was to get the place kind of in better working order. So last year we checked on it, made sure that it was okay, it was still there, a tree didn't crash into the cabin or anything. This year was restocking the things that should have been there, but for some reason my dad didn't have there, cleaning up, a lot of pulling weeds and saplings and cutting branches and just taking care of the property that hadn't been taken care of for several years. It was not a relaxing trip. It was not a fun trip in the sense that it was like, yay, we get a vacation. But we did also have a few days where we weren't at the property and having fun and had a really nice dinner. We also, relaxed at night by the campfire. And I was mostly able to disconnect from work for almost an entire week. So that was also much needed and very nice. Pluses and minuses, but it was just something that was like looming. And the closer that it got, and the more I realized how far behind I was at work, and that I needed to take this full week off out of reception and go do this stuff out in the middle of nowhere, the more stressed I was getting. It was just compounding. It was rough last month. And bouncing off of that, work has been off the hook lately. I don't even know how to talk about it. It is so much work. And it's one of those situations where you're chipping away at things and you're working really hard, and I'm working these long hours trying to get caught up on the amount of stuff that I have. And I'm just not really succeeding in that. So I'm just barely kind of doggy paddling above water. And I'm almost drowning at work. So that has not been helping anything. That's probably the biggest source of stress in my life right now. And I'm trying to work really hard on separation, finding that work-life balance and separating it out so that I'm not bringing that stress and that stuff home with me. That's really hard when you are working mostly from home. That's something people don't talk about enough, I don't think, is that working from home is great in a lot of ways. The flexibility is amazing. My schedule is great. But when something is stressful and just a lot on your plate, you're literally bringing it home. Like, I walk from this room to the living room and I'm still like wound up, you know? Sometimes when you have a commute home, you get, 20, 30 minutes to just relax a little bit and try to decompress after work. And I don't get that anymore. So I'm trying to work on actively doing that after work so that I'm not bringing that stress home and I'm able to have that disconnect. That's very hard to do, especially with someone like me who does not have a lot of practice working from home. I'm working on that. That's really hard to do. I realized that I didn't really get into my stats for this month. I usually start with the stats, and that's because the stats aren't amazing. If we go off of weight, on September 1st, I weighed in at 197.6, which is the lowest that I've ever weighed in at. And then I weighed myself on October 2nd, and I was at 200.2. So looking at that, it doesn't look great. It looks like I gained 2.6 pounds. Ultimately, though, if we look back at the pattern that I've been having, going up 3 pounds and down 3 pounds, that's very common. I would not be surprised in the next few days if that starts trickling down again. I've been doing this, especially a lot more lately with all the stress that I'm going through. Basically, I haven't changed at all in my weight, and I did my measurements and I haven't really changed at all with measurements. I think maybe a couple were down like 0.25 inches. But ultimately most things stayed the same, and that's fine. I'm feeling about the same. I'm feeling really good. So I'm not really worried about it, but I am, on par with what I've been noticing the last several months. The last thing that I really want to touch on in this update is because of all the stress that I've been feeling and because of everything kind of being out of whack, I've been way out of my routine since getting back from Alaska. It's kind of hard to get back into the routine of things, especially because the routine changed as soon as we got back. I didn't mention that my cat's diabetes diagnosis actually happened like 3 days after we got back from our trip, because that's when we could get him into the vet. So as soon as we got back, our routine flipped and had to change. And so I've had a pretty tough time this last month getting back into the swing of things and feeling like I've got a good routine. So as a result, my eating has been kind of all over the place. It hasn't been as patterned as it normally is. We've been eating out a little bit more than normal because we're stressed and it's just easier, and all those things that I think are extremely relatable. Everybody knows when you get stressed out, your eating habits are one of the first things to go, and it's really difficult to try to keep that momentum going when you've got a good thing going with your eating and stuff. I spent a good chunk of time really worrying about the fact that I was eating out more and the fact that I felt like I wasn't as patterned with my food and that I was snacking and eating more carbs and all these different things. And I came to a point when I realized that I've been told so much in my life what I should and shouldn't be eating, that when I'm doing well, I don't feel like I'm doing well. I feel like, oh, I shouldn't be eating that because I've been told that so much my whole life. And so here I am, not feeling like I'm managing my stress very well, and feeling like my viewpoint was that I was just caving into anything that I wanted and eating out and doing all these things where I was just not a care in the world and I wasn't being mindful, and I felt really bad and ashamed, like I didn't have any willpower and that I was letting my stress get to me in this way and doing these old habits. Not really, again, looking at the big picture and realizing that when it comes to this stuff, I still am very mindful when I'm eating. And although I might be eating out, I don't eat the same kinds of food when we go out to eat as I used to, and I don't eat the amounts that I used to. I still am very mindful about what and how I'm eating and how much. I still can barely eat anything when it comes to the portions of eating out at a restaurant. Those are like 2, 3, sometimes 4 meals for me. This whole month, as I've been weighing myself and I've been watching my pattern, I've been realizing that I'm not changing. I'm not gaining weight. I'm not practicing really, really bad habits or anything. I'm actually still being fairly mindful, despite the fact that I am making some choices because of stress, or just some things I need to make the easier choice because there's just so much going on and it's just so overwhelming. But I'm doing okay. And it's these loud people that like to tell you what you can and can't eat. They're the ones that make you feel like you're doing a bad job. And I just want to say that it's not inherently those foods that are the problem. No matter how loud these people are on the internet, no matter how many times diet culture wants to tell you that it's the particular foods that you're eating, that's not inherently the problem, at least for people like me. It's not the problem. It's not the fact that I'm eating a handful of Cheez-Its. It's not the fact that I'm having rice with dinner, or that I'm eating pasta for dinner and then leftovers for lunch, and now I'm just eating a bunch of carbs throughout the day. Those aren't the problem. Carbs are like the number one enemy right now. They're not the problem. My weight isn't really changing. Nothing's really happening, and I'm actually doing fairly well right now. But I truly thought for a while, especially when we were on our vacation and I wasn't able to weigh myself, I really thought that I was doing a really bad job, and I'm not. I'm not. And that leads me into something I said in last week's live stream that seemed to strike a chord with some people, and I've been thinking about quite often for the last week, which is that you don't always have to eat something that somebody else will be proud of. There's a lot of food policing online, especially if you're active in social media and you're sharing what your food choices are. And you might be really proud of yourself and a choice that you made, and it may not go over well with other people, or people might make you feel bad for your food choices. You have every right to eat. You have every right to make the choices that you need to make for your body. And you don't always need to eat something that somebody needs to be proud of. You don't need to impress anybody or be the perfect shining example of willpower. We're all human. And if anybody is going to get on anyone's butt about not having willpower, I will guarantee you, I will bet you money that everybody has experienced this in one form or another. And so for anybody to be on their high horse about choices that you make in a really difficult time in your life, you know, if you're stressed or you're going through something really big, or you're just trying to learn how to manage your coping skills, nobody has ever done that perfectly. Nobody. And I keep trying to remind myself that, you know, I don't need you guys to be proud of me, although I am very grateful that I have an audience that has been very supportive and understanding of my journey. And I don't get those negative comments pretty much ever. So thank you. I know I've been saying that a lot recently, but it really keeps coming back to, you know, I have a really good community that supports me, but I see it, and I see what other people experience, and I still see that content out there in those comments. It's just not directed at me, but it's still very much out there. And so I have to remind myself that that's not the case. You know, I gotta look at my life, my choices, my decisions, and my big picture. Okay, well, I feel like that was a doozy, but I am so grateful for the fall starting. I'm so grateful for October and for spooky season. I'm very, 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 very much looking forward to the rest of October. And I hope you guys are super excited about it as well. And share with me what your plans are for this month, because I feel like October is when things really start happening and people start making like fall plans. So let me know what your plans are in the comments below. Make sure you stay happy, healthy, and always look at the big picture, and I will see you guys in the next one.